All right, so we're back and want to talk about what atoms are. And in order to understand this, think about a rock such as granite. So if you've taken a geology class, you might be familiar with what granite is. It's an igneous rock, very pretty to look at, and it's speckly. And so each of those speckles in the rock granite is going to be a mineral. And then if you were to take a hammer and hit a piece of granite, well, you're going to end up with more pieces of granite. But if you keep pounding on the granite, eventually you're going to get down to the point where you have one of those speckles. And the speckles are minerals. So, for example, in the rock granite, the clear speckles are the mineral quartz. And then if you were to take quartz and hit it with a hammer, you end up with more pieces of quartz. But if you keep hammering it, getting smaller and smaller pieces, eventually you're going to start to see individual atoms that are hooked together in a particular pattern. And so that's a picture of what quartz looks like on the atomic scale. And then if you were to take that thing and hit it with a hammer, eventually you would be down to individual molecules of quartz. And notice that it's made of only two elements. So it's going to be composed of oxygen and silicon. Now what's interesting is that oxygen, and when it's hooked to silicon this way, it makes the mineral quartz, which is clear, and it's very, very hard mineral. But if you were to break apart the molecule into the oxygens and the silicons, then all of a sudden the oxygen would be a gas and the silicon would be a silver metal. Okay, so now we're down to the point where we have individual atoms of a material. So we have an atom of oxygen and then we have an atom of silicon. And notice that they're different from each other in that they have different numbers of protons in their nucleuses, and they also have different numbers of electrons that are in orbit around them. Now, if you were to take oxygen and hit it with a hammer so that you knock out one of those electrons, all of a sudden that oxygen would no longer have the chemical properties that it had when it was completely intact. And the same thing for silicon. So this is the reason why we say that atoms are the smallest units of matter that have the chemical properties of that matter. If you do something to the protons in the nucleus, or if you do something to those electrons that are in orbit, you have a different kind of substance if that happens. So for purposes of the exam, know the definition of an atom, okay? Don't worry about granite, don't worry about quartz, don't worry about quartz molecules. Just know the definition of what an atom is. Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some other properties of atoms.